There are regions in South America where the landscape seems determined to break the rules. The Cerrado is one of them. It's not a jungle, although the vegetation is dense in many stretches. It's not a savanna, although the golden grasslands stretch as far as the eye can see. It's a living mosaic, a land of violent contrasts where every kilometer seems to have been shaped by a different hand. At just over 2 million square kilometers, the Cerrado is the second largest biome in South America and one of the oldest ecosystems on the continent. One would expect that in such a vast and ancient territory the rules would be clear, the cycles well defined, but in this region life does not follow predictability. It's a savage anarchy where the ground cracks in the heat and turns to treacherous mud after an unexpected downpour, where fire sweeps through the grasslands without warning and water disappears in a matter of hours. In this setting, every creature has learned to live on the edge. Felines weighing over 100 kilos stalk the undergrowth. Opportunistic scavengers patrol the air. Small birds resort to dancing as their sole form of courtship and mating. Packs of wild dogs tear apart prey without a trace. In the Cerrado, survival is not a matter of strength or size, but of acting first, quickly and accurately. Here, the climate also kills. Extreme droughts, wildfires, and excessive rainfall shape the behavior of each species. What guarantees food today can become a trap tomorrow. This is the Cerrado, where everything that breathes is condemned to kill or be killed. In one of its many dark lagoons lives a creature that doesn't roar, gallop, or stalk from the trees. It does so underwater, invisible, unhurriedly. The Overo-caiman is a fragment of another era. Its wide body, flattened snout, and scaly armor give it an almost unnatural appearance. He can spend hours motionless with just his eyes and nostrils protruding above the surface. He doesn't need to run. He doesn't need excessive strength. He's content simply waiting. Here, even the water has the memory of blood. Its anatomy seems designed not to chase, but to disappear. The elevated position of its eyes and nostrils allows the caiman to remain almost completely submerged, lurking in the anonymity of the murky waters. Its rough back, covered in bony plates, blends in with fallen branches and dried mud banks. Its broad, flattened snout allows it to grip its prey with a powerful, sustained bite, exerting pressure capable of fracturing bones in a single strike. Thus, the alligator waits motionless for its prey to cross, unaware that it is already trapped. Unlike other Cerrado predators, the caiman doesn't hunt out of immediate hunger. It can go days without feeding, choosing the perfect moment, waiting for its prey to make a mistake. Rivers and lagoons are its exclusive domain. Beneath the surface, stillness becomes its best ally. This fossil reptile shares its territory with felines, birds of prey, and scavengers, but rarely comes into direct conflict. Its habits are nocturnal and opportunistic. It is capable of capturing fish, aquatic birds, amphibians, and, when the environment permits, larger animals. But he doesn't rush. His method consists of motionless stalking, the perfect ambush, one in which the victim doesn't understand what's happening until it's too late. The Overo-caiman has survived for millennia in the Cerrado because it has understood one of its essential rules. Here, whoever shows himself dies. His ambushes are effective because of his invisibility, and his reputation is sustained by silence and surprise. As evening falls, the waters take on a different density. The heat of the day leaves a thick mist in the air, and the animals that prowl the shores do so with a learned distrust. At these times, when the rest of the fauna retreats to higher ground, a young tapir ventures toward a small backwater. The heat is unbearable, and the water's edges are the only places where thirst can be quenched. The tapir stops. He smells. He listens. He knows the water is treacherous, but necessity overcomes his fear. The puddles are riddled with tracks, ancient marks, claw prints on the dry shore. The surface remains still without a single hint of danger. Below, the spotted caiman waits. It has been motionless for hours, protected by the shadows of the mud and submerged weeds. Nothing betrays its presence. The tapir moves forward, digging its paws into the thick mud, oblivious to the threat looming inches below the surface. Each step stirs the murky water. When close enough, the caiman emerges with a brutal charge. The bite catches the tapir's snout. The animal thrashes, struggling desperately, but the caiman's weight and pressure crush it. The water churns, the paws hit the mud for a few more seconds, and then everything is covered in a thick slick that spreads across the surface. In the Cerrado, even the water prays. What appears to be stillness is merely a mask, and the oldest predators, those that have survived time and the transformation of the landscape, don't need to run to win. The caiman doesn't always wait for large prey. This reptile finds more frequent opportunities at the edges of lagoons. A young heron walks along the shore, confident in the absence of felines and other land predators. It ventures into shallow waters, rummaging through roots and soft mud in search of small fish and larvae. But in this landscape, danger never comes from just one direction. Without noticing any trace of visible threat, the heron spreads its neck across the surface. The undergrowth doesn't stir. There are no broken branches or disturbing shadows. It's there when everything seems calm, where it should look. Underwater, the caiman waits. Its body remains hidden beneath a layer of floating vegetation and suspended mud. Only its eyes, barely visible above the surface, and the slight sway of its tail warn of its presence, alert to every movement. The heron takes another step, sinking its thin feet into the soft mud. She tilts her head toward a school of tiny fish. The water vibrates, imperceptible to her, but not to the hunter. The heron tries to take flight, but its body is already trapped. Its feathers become wet and sink into the water as it is dragged down, almost whole, into the predator's mouth. The attack isn't sudden or noisy. A sudden surge of water, a lateral blow from below, and the heron's neck is caught in the bony jaw, a precise movement without splashing. The caiman disappears with its prey without leaving a trace. Its patience, perfect camouflage, and tremendous bite force have placed it at the top of the food chain. A predator that dominates both the stillness and the violence of the Cerrado, a silent king of the murky waters. Death in these environments doesn't always come with a roar or a charge. It comes when attention fails, when instinct goes numb. In this landscape, trusting in calm is surrender, because danger lurks in every shadow, in every seemingly harmless corner, and the difference isn't in strength but in the constant alertness that dictates who lives and who disappears. When one threat disappears underwater, another awakens in the undergrowth. The waters calm down, but the night keeps its own hunters. The danger does not dissipate, it simply changes shape, texture, shadow. Night offers no refuge in the Cerrado. When the heat subsides, the activity changes. The loose dirt roads bear the fresh marks of its claws. Nearby, in a murky pool of water, its alert face peeks out, taking in the surroundings. The jaguar advances unseen. Everything about its body is made for hunting. Its mottled fur blends in with the shadows of the branches and the patches of light that filter through the bushes. Beneath the skin, tense muscles prepare for the attack. The jaw, capable of snapping bones, remains closed. It's not a feline of speed, but of pure power. Its skull, wider and more robust than that of any other large land carnivore, bears fangs up to 7 centimeters long, capable of piercing the base of its prey's skull, breaking vertebrae and tearing tendons with a single blow. With jaw muscles that generate a bite force exceeding 1,000 kilos, its attack is a machine of lethal precision. Hidden but always ready claws accompany the bite, holding the prey, tearing it apart and making any attempt to escape impossible. As soon as the prey tries to escape, and the more it does, the worse it gets, the flesh is already torn by its own struggles, and the force of the attack immobilizes it. The body collapses, defeated. The jaguar feeds calmly, but the satisfaction is momentary. Hunger remains, a silent engine driving its next move. He moves slowly into new territory. He doesn't rush ahead. He plans every step. Every move is calculated, every decision thoughtful. He stops. He measures the air currents. His snout rises slightly and his whiskers pick up any variation. It is part of his reading of the environment, a language invisible to others but clear to him. The jaguar recognizes the trails that herbivores have made during the day. Fresh footprints are left in the soft mud, and the still bent grasses mark a recent path. Among the bushes, he follows the trail of a deer that has separated from its group. There are no errors in his reading. Even though he doesn't see it, he knows it's close. The undergrowth barely stirs. The deer moves through dry bushes, following a seemingly safe path. He raises his head for a moment, sniffing the air. He senses nothing amiss, but the threat is nowhere in sight. The jaguar has chosen its position. It hides behind a fallen tree trunk where the shadows of scattered branches break its silhouette. It hasn't moved forward yet. It waits. The terrain is on their side. Further ahead, a narrow passage between the rocks forces any animal to cross at that point. That's where things happen. The jaguar knows that place. It's used it before. Every meter the deer travels reduces the distance. The feline doesn't need to run. It simply waits for its prey to cross the invisible line, where its advantage becomes absolute. One last look. The jaguar flexes its paws, preparing. The air shifts. The tension builds in an instant. The first leap isn't intended to kill. It seeks to close the gap, to undermine resistance. The prey tries to escape, but the claws dig into its flanks. The bite isn't aimed at the neck, but at the skull, a sharp blow that stops all movement. The body collapses without a fight. Without a sound, he drags the body through the undergrowth. He doesn't abandon it. He gives nothing away. Because in El Cerrado, one person's feast can become another's opportunity. It goes deep into the thick vegetation, where neither the vulture nor the fox will be able to track the scent. In this biome, survival does not belong to the strongest or the fastest. It belongs to those who know how to wait, measure, and disappear when the air becomes thick. And no one understands that law better than the jaguar. In Cerrado, this feline is neither a decorative figure nor an ancestral symbol. It is the unshakable certainty that life can be extinguished silently, with a precise bite, without the rest of the ecosystem even stopping to contemplate. The atmosphere of this dry landscape, filled with twisted bushes, rough grasslands, and elusive waterholes, seems to have been designed for their hunting style. Here, the jaguar finds not only food, but a perfect setting for what it does best: disappear and strike without warning. Unlike other big cats, the jaguar is a patient hunter. It identifies its prey by scent, the rhythm of the wind, and fresh tracks in the soft earth. You don't need to see to know what's nearby. The Cerrado teaches you to read signs that others would find insignificant: a broken branch, a slight difference in soil moisture, a tapir footprint with its edges still intact. Not everything is theirs, however. The jaguar shares these lands with other hunters: foxes, caracals, ocelots, and the long-legged maned wolf. Although none of them pose a direct threat, the jaguar knows their paths. It avoids crossing paths unnecessarily. Only man, with his weapons and his stubbornness, has dared to challenge it. And yet, the jaguar adapts. It changes its routes, alters its hunting grounds, and waits where it once hunted in plain sight. He knows how to swim, and not only can he enjoys it. Unlike other felines, his dense, muscular body finds water an ally. It crosses rivers, explores backwaters, and pursues semi-aquatic prey with the same skill it displays in the low brush. In these warm waters, its body is perfectly adapted to stealth and ambush. Its bite retains the same strength, its vision adjusts to the rippling reflection, and its patience remains intact. On land or in water, your instinct operates under a single premise: act when the moment is right. He's not a hunter with a fixed schedule. He prefers the shadows, where his spots blend in with the shadows of the Cerrado. But he attacks when the opportunity presents itself: at dawn, in the last light of the afternoon, or at any moment when a prey's carelessness opens the door. Because in this place, rules aren't written down, they're sensed, but not everything in this land follows the rhythm of the hunt. When a female enters heat, subtle changes unfold beyond the visible. The air is charged with chemical signals that the male perceives without any margin of error. Primitive impulses he cannot suppress, an internal call that drags him after the scent with obsessive determination. For days, the male marks his presence. He scrapes the bark of trees with his claws and urinates on bushes and stems, leaving marks that warn other suitors. The female, without rushing, controls the encounter. She provokes him, lures him away, guides his steps along dense paths and hidden waterholes, forcing him to demonstrate resilience and patience. For hours, sometimes days, their trails intersect and blur in a chase that admits no witnesses. When the moment arrives, the female stops in an area of low grass. She turns slightly, offers her flank, and the male advances without hesitation. The contact is brief, physical, marked by biological urgency rather than bonding. There is no prolonged courtship or subsequent coexistence, only the intermingling of two bodies designed for survival. Then, sooner rather than later, each one resumes its route. The female will seek refuge, the male will return to his domain, because in this territory, not even mating guarantees respite. Everything persists on the brink of hunger, stalking, and death. For the next 3 months, the female remains on the less traveled margins of the Cerrado. She avoids crossing paths marked by other predators. She moves cautiously, hunting small and medium-sized prey that doesn't involve long chases or risky fights. She hasn't abandoned her solitary nature, but her travels are reduced. She conserves energy, avoids conflict, and stays away from males, who during prolonged mating seasons can pose a threat even to a pregnant female. When the time comes, away from the usual traffic of predators and scavengers, the female gives birth silently, and inside a natural crevice the young are born. Blind and helpless, they will remain there for weeks, feeding on the thick milk that protects them from dehydration and starvation. For the first few months, they rarely stray from their den, hidden beneath fallen logs or between the walls of ravines. As they grow, their mother guides them on their first hunts. He teaches them to decipher the signs of the forest, to avoid poisonous plants, and to recognize the signs that herald danger. He doesn't accompany them forever. As they gain strength, he abandons them in different areas, forcing them to seek their own territory. Because in these lands, staying close is a death sentence. Survival depends on moving, on disappearing, on seizing a piece of land and defending it at all costs. Jaguars do not form packs. Their instinct is solitary. Contact with other individuals is limited to territorial fights, mating, or disputes over coveted prey. Each encounter is a negotiation that can be resolved in low grunts or brutal fights, where jaws and claws define who remains and who disappears. But there is one ritual that no one renounces, that of watering. At the riverbanks, the jaguar drinks and stalks, because in these lands, where water is scarce, everything that breathes ends up, sooner or later, on the banks. On one of those banks, during a stifling night, a jaguar stops. The water reflects a motionless, starless sky. On the surface, just a slight movement, a minimal wake, an alligator. It swims slowly, unaware that someone is watching it from the low branch of a dead tree. The feline gauges the distance. It leaps and lands in the water. The birds take flight. The water churns, and the shapes of bodies thump beneath the surface. The water flows under its feet. Victorious, the jaguar emerges with the caiman between its fangs. The reptile remains rigid, its jaws open. The bloodstain slowly disperses. Without looking back, the feline enters the thick undergrowth, taking its prey to a refuge where neither scavengers nor opportunists will be able to snatch a single fragment or disturb its peace. Because here in Cerrado, everything that breathes earns its place. And the jaguar doesn't ask anyone for it. He takes it. In the open lands of South America, death doesn't always come in the form you'd imagine. They have compact bodies, broad heads, short legs, and dark eyes that barely shine in the darkness. Creatures that at first glance might seem harmless, but here in this vast landscape, everything can be deceptive. And among those small, dense bodies, none display violence with the consistency of the vinegar dog. With its reddish fur, short snout, and short, stocky body, its appearance is disarming to the unwary. Its jaws are designed to shred tendons, tear flanks, and fracture small bones in a matter of seconds. The most dangerous thing isn't its anatomy, but its way of life. It never acts alone, and in an ecosystem where loneliness is often a death sentence, the vinegar dog has become the social butcher of the Cerrado. They hunt in tight, compact, organized packs. A small group, but coordinated with a precision that seems impossible for their size. They don't scatter, they don't shout, they don't chase for long, they surround, they force, they isolate, they kill. In these dense, relict scrubland, collective strength is a silent language, the strategy that turns the impossible into game. They bring down everything from muscular agoutis to deer calves and even giant armadillos when the opportunity presents itself. The pack communicates through low grunts, barely audible squeals, and the movement of their bodies. They understand each other without seeing each other. One animal cuts off its prey's retreat, another forces it into the dense undergrowth, and a third waits silently for the right moment. There's no margin for error. In the Cerrado, a failed chase is a missed opportunity that can't be recovered. The heat is heavy, dense, and opaque. The parched vegetation remains motionless under the relentless sun. Between low bushes and dusty shrubs, the pack advances soundlessly. This time, their target is an agouti, an agile, muscular, and ever-alert rodent, but overconfident in its command of the terrain. He moves confidently through the clearings, completely unaware that he has been surrounded. A hound hides next to a fallen tree trunk. Another keeps watch in the opposite direction. The third initiates the movement. The agouti senses something late. He runs toward an open space, but the first one emerges from the undergrowth like a low, compact shadow. The agouti turns, but the pack has already closed the ring. It's not a clean chase, it's a siege. In less than 20 seconds, the rodent's body is trapped. Its teeth sink into its flanks. Its hind legs are grabbed by another dog. The ground becomes stained with blood, and movement ceases. They tear it into fragments. One holds the head, while another carries off a portion of the body. The rest drag what's left into the undergrowth. Here, nothing remains untouched for long. What isn't consumed immediately will attract smaller scavengers before nightfall, and for the vinegar dog that means more competition, less food, and the constant risk of losing what it's caught. But this pack doesn't just hunt. They defend their territory with a ferocity that surpasses that of many solitary predators. They mark trails, patrol the edges of dry streams, and do not hesitate to attack other smaller carnivores if they cross their boundaries. This ability to dominate doesn't depend solely on numbers. Its seemingly harmless anatomy conceals brutal adaptations, a bite that, in proportion to its size, surpasses that of much larger predators, short, sturdy legs that allow it to slip unseen through the undergrowth, and a tremendous sense of smell, capable of detecting fresh blood several hundred meters away, even through the suspended dust and dense heat that distorts aromas on these plains. It is thanks to this combination that the vinegar dog is not afraid of entering other people's burrows, climbing fallen trunks, or even swimming among submerged roots, since its compact body lends itself to this. Violence isn't optional in this biome, and this carnivore understands this better than anyone. The young are trained in this law from their first weeks. They follow the pack on its nightly runs, watching the hunts from the undergrowth until one night they are allowed to participate. There's no gradual learning. Here, the only way to belong is to sink your teeth in before someone else. In this harsh landscape where daylight doesn't guarantee safety and darkness only increases threats, the vinegar dog has turned cooperation into a weapon and group violence into a method. He has no fear, and if he does, he disguises it with courage. His courage grows with each body he runs. The pack gives him the certainty that each patrol will come with a reward. Thus, in a world where uncertainty is the only constant, their union is the only guarantee of survival. In this South American territory where nothing lasts for long, danger doesn't always arrive with a bang. It slips silently by, hovering high above, blending into a vine swaying to the rhythm of the warm afternoon wind. Nothing in this place happens by chance. Every move has a cost, and every second can decide who lives or who is left behind, exposed and vulnerable. A worn branch creaks softly. Among the dried leaves and green stems, a green snake slithers, waiting for its next victim. Its scales reflect imperceptible flashes under the oblique light of the sunset. Suspended on a curved branch, its body remains motionless, tense like a spring, its jaw ready to strike. Below, a graceful cuica cautiously advances over the cracked bark, searching for insects. Small and silent, with ashen fur, it moves without a trace. Evolution rewards anticipation. After countless generations, the cuica detects the imperceptible, the slightest vibration of a branch tensing, a change in temperature, the faint scent of scaly skin. He stops. His whiskers twitch. His ears pick up a vibration that doesn't fit with the foliage. Silently, he steps aside just as the snake strikes. The cuica jumps to a side branch, crossing a space between leaves, and disappears into the undergrowth. The snake hangs, swinging without emotion or fury. In El Cerrado, failure is part of the cycle. This tiny animal that has escaped certain death is no ordinary mouse. It doesn't belong to that lineage. It's a marsupial, a distant relative of kangaroos and koalas, but with a history all its own, forged in the harshness of South America. While rodents give birth to already formed young, the macaw gives birth to tiny, hairless, shapeless larvae, which complete their development in a ventral pouch. There, protected from the oppressive heat and predators always on the lookout, they remain until they are strong enough to face the dangers of the environment. The true protagonist of this moment is this tiny marsupial, a creature shaped by the need to survive everything. Its agile and flexible body can slide through tiny gaps, quickly climb broken branches, and jump distances impossible for its size. Their sense of smell detects pheromones from predators and prey, and their hearing, honed by centuries of nighttime stalking, perceives vibrations that other animals barely register. It feeds on insects, arachnids, and fleshy fruits found in the undergrowth. It usually takes advantage of the first and last hours of daylight to move around when daytime predators have left the scene and nocturnal predators have not yet dominated the territory. It's opportunistic, intelligent, and brutally efficient. It doesn't just hunt. It also raids nests, devours eggs, and steals food from the remains left behind by others. Its reproductive cycle is equally relentless. It can reproduce several times a year, adapting the frequency to food availability. The female gives birth to litters of up to 8 tiny pups, which cling to her breasts inside her ventral pouch. They remain there until their legs can support them, and their senses are developed enough to perceive the danger lurking around every crevice of the Cerrado. Its role in this ecosystem is vital. It regulates populations of insects and small vertebrates, disperses seeds through its droppings, and in turn feeds a long list of predators, from tree snakes to small cats and birds of prey. But it survives more than it dies because it has turned its apparent weakness into an evolutionary advantage. Where others rely on strength or size, the cuica, gracious, relies on its hearing, its sense of smell, its instinct, and its ability to read the intentions of the forest. He has learned that in the Cerrado, even those who seem to be in control can lose it in the blink of an eye. Dusk stretches across the low brush, and the cuica continues hunting, attentive to every vibration, every shifting shadow, to those silences that in this ecosystem reveal more than anyone could imagine. At dawn, in a remote corner of this vast Brazilian savanna, dawn slowly slips between the trees. Golden light tints the horizon as morning mist rises from the muddy shores and reed-shaded wetlands. From the bushes, a familiar figure emerges. The capybara, the world's largest rodent, moves with a calm gait, oblivious to the din of the previous twilight, but attentive to every sign in its surroundings. At first glance, it's a strange animal, too robust, too placid, too trusting to inhabit a biome that seems designed to devour creatures of its size. And yet, it has inhabited this territory for millennia, learning not to fight it, but to live with it. Capybaras coexist with jaguars, caimans, anacondas, and packs of guinea pigs. They don't hide from them. They don't seek refuge in areas far from the maelstrom. On the contrary, their territories are located where danger most frequently lurks, on the edges of lagoons, on the banks of temporary streams, and in the corridors of low vegetation that connect patches of savanna and gallery forest. Places where water and fresh grass are abundant and where predators also hunt daily. The Cerrado is a natural trap. Only those who understand its rules survive, and the capybara achieved this through cooperation and social strategy, not violence. By nature, they are extremely peaceful animals. They don't fight, they don't corner, they don't charge. But their true strength isn't in their teeth or their paws, it's in their numbers. They are always seen in groups, not by chance, since this is how they have shaped their only effective defense, collective vigilance. While some feed, others keep watch. When one detects a disturbance in the water, the wind, or the nearby forest, it emits a short, dry, barely audible growl that quickly spreads through the group, triggering a collective alert. In less than an instant, the entire herd dives into the water, because that's its other weapon. Its anatomy has been shaped for amphibious life. Its massive body, weighing up to 70 kilos, appears clumsy on land, but it's agile in open spaces, and it can reach surprising speeds when it breaks into a run. However, it is in the water where it reveals its true nature. Its eyes, ears, and nostrils are aligned on the top of its head, allowing it to swim with its body almost submerged, barely allowing its gaze to peek out among the aquatic weeds. It can stay below the surface for several minutes, disorienting its pursuers, and travel long distances through the hidden channels that connect the seasonal lagoons of the Cerrado. The capybara, despite its gentle nature, has survived for millennia in this hostile ecosystem because it knows that survival doesn't depend solely on strength. Its success lies in organization. It has developed a social system where cooperation is instinctive, and the sacrifice of one can mean salvation for all. And there's another reason why big game hunters rarely risk facing it. Its size and the compact, reinforced structure of its bones make it difficult to stalk. A jaguar can hunt it, yes, but not without effort or risk. A caiman could ambush it, but the adult capybara rarely exposes itself alone, and its prowess in the water surpasses that of almost any Cerrado mammal. The caimans, even though they share a space, have learned that an adult capybara is not a profitable prey. They prefer fish, birds, or unsuspecting young. This coexistence is not cordiality, it is natural selection. Each species has found its place in this fragile balance. The capybara is herbivorous, but its diet is not limited to the most accessible. It feeds on more than 120 different plant species, selecting young shoots, riparian grasses, and aquatic vegetation. This diversity is key to surviving the extreme seasons of this ecosystem, where drought turns lagoons into cracked dust and rain transforms the landscape into a network of overflowing streams. In this changing landscape, their reproductive strategies also adapt. The mating process obeys the implacable rules of the biome. The female chooses the dominant male, usually the most experienced, and courtship almost always takes place in the water. The sun begins to set, and the warm water reflects the orange sky. Between the reed-covered banks, a large male approaches with a firm, deliberate stride toward a female who is already watching him from the shade of a submerged bush. There's no urgency, but there is attention. Every movement counts. With gentle nudges and by rubbing his body against hers, he begins a subtle dance that seems rehearsed for millennia. The female responds by moving closer and further away, measuring her strength, awakening instincts that only reveal themselves in this liquid environment. Around them, the rest of the group watches silently, aware of the delicate negotiation that will determine the next chapter in the pack's life. There, protected from predators and harassment by other males, the pair bonds together in a bond necessary for the continuity of the group. Reproductive success is vital. A female can have up to 8 pups per litter and several litters per year, depending on resource availability. The young are born fully developed, capable of running and swimming within minutes. They remain under the care of the entire group. The threat is constant, without pause, day and night. A capybara separated from the herd is safe prey, but only in the crowd can it find the strength to survive. Thus, in this ferocious ecosystem, where the law is dictated by teeth, claws, and ambushes, the capybara has survived thanks to its social intelligence, perpetual vigilance, and its dominance between land and water. It has no need for violence. Cerrado has taught it to resist in another way. And while the jaguar stalks in the thicket, the caimans silently patrol the lagoons and the nocturnal predators sharpen their senses, the capybara herd is still there. Apparently imperturbable, but always attentive to the slightest disturbance in the air, in the sound, and in the water. On the horizon, thunder rumbles in the distance. Birds seek refuge among the branches as the wind calms, as if the earth were holding its breath. The Cerrado becomes silent without cawing, without the creaking of branches or the usual buzzing of insects. The first drops hit the fallen leaves with an irregular rhythm, awakening echoes that multiply among the bushes. The rain falls heavily, carrying away the dried dust, filling the puddles and creating mirror-like pools on the uneven ground. The wind rustles the branches, and the thicket seems to come alive with a growing murmur, a humid sigh that permeates the landscape. The animals take shelter and slow their movements, alert to the change the storm brings. The air is filled with the smell of wet earth, and the light becomes dull, filtered through the leaden grey of the sky. When the rain stops, silence falls, heavy and absolute. No croaking, no rustling, no insect buzzing is heard. This silence brings no peace. It is the unmistakable sign that there are eyes hidden in the darkness, watchful and patient, ready to take advantage of the moment when nature stands still. Among the rolling grasslands and the wet paths of the lagoons, a specimen separates itself from the group. He feels safe. He's fed well, and his body, heavy with water and fresh grass, makes him clumsy and sleepy. The scent of mud and riparian plants still lingers in its damp fur, leaving traces of the rain that fell just a few hours ago, and that has marked its fate ever since. The predator is in no hurry. Since before dawn, under an overcast sky that foreshadowed a storm, it has followed its prey. It doesn't hunt out of hunger or urgent need. It hunts because it can, because patience is a weapon it has perfected to the point of turning waiting into part of the attack. He has watched the herbivore feed, how it sought refuge in the water, how it emerged to graze again. He has waited for the exact moment, when a full belly numbs the senses, when the legs become clumsy, when the body cries out for rest, not escape. The shadows begin to lengthen. The temperature has already dropped after the rain, and just before darkness completely engulfs the landscape, the hunter decides to move. There's no prior sound, no warning, just a figure emerging from the thicket. The jaguar impacts like a block of tense and precise muscles. Its weight sinks the prey into the mud before it even tries to react. There's no chase. There's no race. Closed is not a place for wasting energy. Here, the kill is immediate. Their fangs pierce not only the flesh, but the very marrow of the neck, seeking that point where everything ends before it begins. And in that final moment, when the jaguar's head rises and the last flash of light pierces the thicket, that improbable face is revealed. Their symmetry is no coincidence. Their eyes, fixed and calculating, are set just far enough apart to accurately measure the distance, while their ears are raised to the same level, rotating in perfect synchrony to capture sounds that escape any other being in these lands. The nose, neither too big nor too small, occupies a precise place in that facial geography, where each molecule in the air is a message to be deciphered. Beneath that structure, the mouth is a precise curve, designed not to display grotesque fangs, but to seize, suffocate, and crush with an efficiency that allows no margin for error. That perfection isn't beauty. It's evolution in its rawest form. Every line, every angle, every symmetry is the result of thousands of generations where only the most efficient, the most precise, the most silent manage to survive. In a landscape where intense rains alternate with long periods of dry, brittle soil, where vegetation changes radically with the seasons and prey is not always within reach, life is a constant battle. Frequent and devastating wildfires reshape the territory without warning, forcing the jaguar to adapt or perish. Competition with other large game hunters and the need to dominate a vast territory amplify the pressure, making each hunt a calculated risk in a game where failure means death. But even so, the jaguar advances without hesitation. Its muscular and stealthy body, its honed instincts and lethal intelligence make it the undisputed master of this unpredictable territory. It overcomes difficulties not only with strength, but with a patience that wears down its prey and a cunning that dominates the landscape like no one else. For many Cerrado herbivores, the last face they will see will not be that of the jaguar as an animal. It will be that of perfect predation. And if that perfection exists, it is due to its diet, to the proteins from the bodies it has destroyed for centuries. Unlike herbivores, whose evolution is based on grasses and roots, the jaguar metabolizes meat like no other creature. Each prey item gives it immediate strength, dense muscle tissue, and sharp reflexes. The essential amino acids it obtains from every animal fiber are instantly utilized to maintain its compact legs, flexible spine, and intact endurance. What for others is simple food, for him is the raw material of perfection. And Cerrado has always provided him with what he needs to stay at the top, because here the natural balance dictates that only those who understand when to wait, when to kill, and when to disappear at just the right moment survive. However, it's not always claws and fangs that decide who lives and who dies in these lands. In this corner of South America, the greatest enemy rarely reveals itself. It hides in the blood, in rotting flesh, in the tiny bite of an insect invisible in the darkness. In this landscape, where every corner breathes humidity and warmth, disease is a daily presence. An animal can escape a jaguar, resist the attack of a snake, but succumb defenselessly to a sudden fever or an infection that doesn't show its face until it's too late. Every massacre leaves behind more than carrion. The corpses, under the weight of the sun, ferment quickly. Flies, mosquitoes, and bacteria multiply on bodies, releasing death-laden particles into the air. Unclaimed meat becomes a trap. There, viruses are bred, fevers are transmitted, and infections emerge that can ravage without distinction. Those without a system prepared to withstand it fall. And here there is no redemption. Animals know this. Although from a distance they may seem unaware of these threats, ignorant of their own risk, the reality is different. Cerrado has shaped its creatures with an ancestral memory, inscribed in their senses and habits. Herbivores avoid stagnant waters where carrion floats. Carnivores abandon diseased prey at the slightest sign of rot, and those who have consumed spoiled meat seek remedies in what the earth offers. One of the most cunning is the Sapajus macaque libidinosus. It is not an animal that imposes itself through its strength or speed. But where others falter, this primate has learned to read the Cerrado with unusual precision. When a member of the group falls ill, the macaque, without hesitation, resorts to the rough leaves of certain bitter plants, which it chews without swallowing. The vegetable paste coats your tongue and throat, causing controlled nausea that expels the toxic contents before they can devastate your body. And in most cases, this remedy is sufficient. The body eliminates the substance and the fever subsides within a few hours. At other times, he unearths pungent-tasting roots rich in alkaloids that fight gut bacteria without conscious awareness. This medicine, repeated for generations, keeps the clan safe from the ravages that other animals fail to avoid. Coatis fall victim to intestinal parasites after feeding on fermented fruits. Fever and weakness consume them within hours, leaving their bodies among the damp undergrowth where scavengers quickly take advantage. But this small primate isn't the only one to turn to ancestral medicines. The solitary and patient tamandua, the Bandera tamandua, also knows the resources the land offers. After ingesting rotting insects, it seeks out specific clay banks. There it carefully licks the moist soil, rich in minerals that neutralize toxins and coat the stomach walls, preventing poisons from circulating freely. Other animals choose to devour fibrous, tough, and bitter-tasting stems, which cause a rapid intestinal purge. The red deer chews certain grasses at the first sign of fever, not out of instinctive superstition. It's a precise remedy, etched in its species for centuries. In the heart of the Cerrado, intelligence isn't measured solely by hunting savvy or territorial mastery. Survival means knowing which carrion to avoid, which infected areas to evade, and which plants to seek out at dawn for protection. No inhabitant of these lands ignores the invisible dangers that lurk, because those who do don't survive. It may be said that animals don't understand disease, but evidence contradicts that judgment. They recognize symptoms, anticipate risks, and seek solutions where other animals only see weeds. Those who endure are those who have made discretion a virtue. They know when to advance, when to retreat, and how to purge the shadow of death from their bodies. The Cerrado stretches across millions of hectares, a vast mosaic that covers almost a fifth of Brazil's territory. It is a sea of tall grasses, shrubs, and scattered forests with unique savanna formations that harbor extraordinary biodiversity. Its apparent calm hides a constant dynamic, where life unfolds in a balance that has been sustained for millennia. However, in recent times, human presence has altered this rhythm. Massive tree felling opens gaps in the landscape, and paths cut through the greenery alter the continuity of the habitat. Machinery and traffic generate new vibrations and sounds that add to the natural repertoire. Despite the vast expanse, even in the most remote corners, the signs of this transformation are perceptible. Some animals seek denser shelters, adapting their routines to avoid the hours of peak human activity. Diets also adjust. It's common to observe subtle changes in diet, with species incorporating new resources or modifying their foraging habits. The pressure to maintain a safe space drives constant vigilance, where the senses are heightened to detect any sign of disturbance. The complexity of the Cerrado lies not only in its extreme climatic conditions, but also in the specialization of its inhabitants. Specialist species, adapted to very specific niches, face greater challenges. The giant anteater depends on specific termite mounds and wide areas to navigate. when the environment changes suddenly, its survival becomes more difficult, and the precision with which it has evolved for this ecosystem can become its greatest vulnerability. In this scenario, evolution exerts its power. The fittest triumphs. Those who fail to adapt decline in number, even approaching local extinction. It is possible that human intervention will foster the absolute reign of certain predators, or foster the development of new species with surprising adaptations that will change the face of the Cerrado in the coming decades. Behavioral plasticity, more than strength or speed, becomes a fundamental tool. In this land of contrasts, where rain and drought dictate the rhythm of life, animals respond to every change with a blend of instinct and adaptation. This space remains a setting where life reinvents itself at every moment, with its inhabitants adjusting to an environment that, although modified, maintains the essence of its antiquity. It's not just vastness. It's a living, breathing territory, shaped by its fauna, shaping and adjusting its every movement. Although external pressures have reduced some of its size, its vastness continues to host scenes that escape all prediction. Between the dry grass and scattered bushes, a reddish shadow glides with long, measured strides, cutting through the air with an unexpected presence. It's not strength or speed that defines this open country hunter. What really makes the difference is the precision to take advantage of every opportunity. The maned wolf has learned to live beyond the common patterns of South American hunting. Its success lies in cunning, patience, and a profound adaptation to a changing world. Their legs, disproportionately long compared to the rest of their bodies, are no mere evolutionary whim. They are a perfect tool for traversing the tall grasslands and dense scrub that dominate much of the Cerrado. They allow them to move above vegetation, detect small prey from greater distances, and navigate effectively on uneven terrain. This unique physique is complemented by a long, rough coat whose reddish tone is not intended for exhibition purposes. It's not a mating signal or a warning. It's an adaptation to the dry, golden hues of the landscape. Under the broken light of the first and last hours of the day, its figure dissolves among the stems and bushes. Discretion is its greatest advantage. It does not hunt in groups. It is an essentially solitary animal. Interactions with others of its species are rare, limited to brief encounters during mating seasons or when young of the same litter share territory before becoming independent. Survival, if any, is sustained by independence. It does not seek out large prey. Its diverse and flexible diet includes fruits, small vertebrates, insects, and carrion left behind by other predators. What marked its success was not strength, but the ability to exploit resources that others ignored. During dry seasons, when large hunters are scarce and large prey migrate or die, the maned wolf finds sustenance where others fail. His slow gait isn't a coincidence. He follows a sign, a faint trail on the ground, the fresh mark of an animal digging. A few meters away, an armadillo emerges. The largest armadillo in South America, a subterranean specialist with its grey shell and immeasurable strength for its size. It avoids the surface during the day, but certain nights force it to change its routine. Hunger, the heat accumulated in its burrow, and the presence of larger predators can cause it to abandon its shelter earlier than usual. In the dim light, his eyes catch the faint movement of an armadillo digging persistently under the leaf litter. The distance between them shortens. The maned wolf doesn't pounce. It knows the armadillo isn't easy prey, but its interest isn't focused on the armadillo, but rather on what its movements leave behind. By removing roots and leaf litter, the armadillo exposes insects, rodent nests, and other small inhabitants of the undergrowth. Then it happens. A dry root shifts. A group of field mice bursts into a frantic race. The maned wolf reacts immediately. A precise stride, a clean bite, and the prey is secured. It doesn't chase the rest. There's no unnecessary expenditure of energy. The armadillo continues, unfazed. It continues its routine underground, turning over the soil in search of grubs and roots. The maned wolf, satisfied with its catch, moves away to more dense areas. There is no open violence or direct competition. In this ancient ecosystem, encounters don't always end in confrontation. Sometimes, survival depends on exploiting the consequences of others' behavior. A harsh balance shaped by centuries, where every animal, large or small, plays a role that transcends its will. And while the shadows lengthen over the Cerrado, life continues in that constant tension. Take advantage, survive, and give in no more than necessary. From the twisted heights of a dry branch, a motionless figure follows the movement under the grass. No obvious movement is necessary, just a slight turn of the head is enough to track the manned wolf's direction. Every step he takes, every stalk he waves is captured by his sharp gaze. In the Cerrado, no movement goes unnoticed. While the predator moves, another waits, and the distance is not accidental. The caracara plans its opportunity from above. It has learned this through generations of patient observation. Their eyes, adapted to detect contrasts in an environment where colors change with the light, can locate remains hundreds of meters away. When the wolf withdraws, satisfied and harried by the growing heat, the air remains dense and still for a few moments. Only the buzzing of insects returns. Then the bird descends, not in a dive. It glides low, lands at a prudent distance, and scans the terrain. The remains are exposed, and the opportunity is fleeting. Its anatomy is that of an opportunist. A curved beak, more adept at tearing and slashing than killing. Strong claws, designed for grasping and holding, not for immobilizing live prey. Its dull-toned plumage withstands the dust and humidity of the rainy season without losing flexibility. It doesn't attract rivals or attract the attention of large scavengers. The Cerrado, with its endless expanse of savannas, scrublands, and forest galleries, forces a choice. And this animal chose to adapt to the interstices. He doesn't rule over anyone, but he reads the moments better than most. His success doesn't depend on strength, it depends on knowing how to fill the available seconds between retreat and a new attack. As it consumes the remains, the insects move forward. Metal flies and carrion beetles peer into the gaps in exposed flesh, claiming their share. Therefore, the caracara doesn't stay too long. Its strategy is to avoid conflict and give up space before a larger rival arrives. This flexibility is nothing new. Throughout its evolutionary history, this species has perfected a formula that others haven't attempted, abandoning being an exclusive hunter or scavenger to become a creature of circumstance. Where predators persist in strength and larger scavengers in numbers, the caracara found its niche in observation, calculation, and waiting. Their interactions with others of their species are sporadic. They don't form tight flocks or hunt in groups. They prefer to work individually or at least share opportunities when abundance allows. This independence, which keeps them out of unnecessary disputes, ensures less direct competition and more opportunities to take advantage of the unexpected. Because the caracara understood that survival isn't always about being the strongest or the fastest, and that intelligently adapting to changing circumstances, taking advantage of every opportunity without wasting energy on confrontations that don't guarantee success, is key. Therefore, he continues patrolling calmly and decisively. In the stillness of the open plains of the Cerrado, where the sparse grassland stretches between scattered reddish stones, his silhouette advances with a firm step. It prefers to walk when the situation calls for it, searching the ground with its head held high and its neck feathers ruffled. It is one of the few scavengers capable of pursuing a wounded animal on foot or exploring burrows hidden under dry bushes. The caracara's behavior changes completely during the breeding season. During this time, their territories become spaces for active defense. Visual and audible signals intensify, low-flying flights, insistent calls, and plumage displays. Courtship rituals, brief but decisive, mark the bond between the pair. Recognition involves rigid postures, a slow and controlled unfolding of wings, and a guttural, dry and harsh sound as if dragged from a remote era. When the union is confirmed, they seek out abandoned nests of other raptors or build simple platforms in the canopy of sturdy shrubs. From there, they keep watch, and if a predator approaches, the caracara doesn't hesitate to use its best resource, its swift, agile gait. It may attract the intruder's attention, lure it away from the nest on foot, and then take flight at the last moment. This strategy, inherited from their prehistoric ancestors, has ensured the survival of their lineage in a relentless landscape, where uncertainty is unforgiving and nature punishes without warning. For almost a month, the egg protects the fledgling, a life that grows slowly and silently beneath the shell. Both parents take turns incubating it, keeping it warm and vigilant for any threat. When the chick finally hatches, fragile and vulnerable, the parents intensify their care. They take turns feeding it, keeping it hidden under the dry feathers of the nest, exposed to constant danger. If a predator lurks, their defense isn't aerial, it's on foot, with direct attacks and short hops, all in a territorial stance. The Cerrado demands cunning rather than strength, and nothing about the caracara is accidental. Its dark plumage, mottled in ochre and grey, blends with the stony ground. Its long legs tirelessly scan the terrain, rummaging among sun-bleached bones. Each trait is a precise tool for survival in this wild mosaic, and every time its harsh call resonates, an ancient echo breaks into the present. More than just a bird of prey, it's an ancient fragment of the Cerrado, a creature that still retains in its body and behavior the reflexes of an era when winged predators shared the earth with giants. While the Cerrado's ground witnesses its routine of stalking, escapes, and lethal encounters in the lower canopy and clearings where light barely filters through the branches, another spectacle occurs. It leaves no trace of blood or traces on the earth, but decides the fate of future generations. The Cerrado manakins, small birds with compact, glossy plumage, have made dance their essential language. Here, in these clearings no more than half a meter in diameter, adult males prepare the stage for their ceremony. They remove dry branches, separate leaves, and clear any obstacles that interfere with their presentation. Every square meter of floor becomes a track. Before the decisive moment, there is a time for practice. Young males gather among nearby branches. They hop, spin, and flap their wings, producing brief, dry clicks. They rehearse sequences of measured jumps, observe veterans, and memorize the choreographies they will one day have to execute with absolute perfection. In this corner of the Cerrado, every mistake is recorded in the silence of the jungle, with no room for repetition or forgetting. The dominant male, the one who has survived the previous season and knows every branch, every clearing, cleans his space with obsessive precision. The clear surface should reflect light at just the right moments and avoid obstacles that interfere with their movements and sounds. He doesn't just clear away vegetation, he chooses clearings where light and shade facilitate their display, adapting to the surrounding conditions. When he is ready, he lets out his short, deep song, a hoarse call that the female can recognize from a distance. She doesn't approach by mistake. Each call has a distinctive timbre, an intensity that reveals the maturity and vigor of the performer. The female appears without warning. Silently, perched on a low branch, she watches. He doesn't approach immediately. He evaluates. The male begins. He leaps, flaps his wings precisely, hovers a few inches, and lands exactly where he wanted. The wings produce a dry clicking sound, which marks the rhythm. The female remains attentive. The male accelerates, hopping between branches without touching a leaf, his plumage flashing with fleeting glimmers, his crest bristling, his muscles tense. Everything seems made for that moment. Success isn't just about color or precision. It's about maintaining the sequence, not missing the turns, maintaining the exact rhythm, and measuring each jump. After several cycles, the female responds with a slight twist on the branch. The male stops, ruffles his crest, and displays his feathers in a final, calculated gesture. Then he flies up to her, confirming his courtship. Beyond the immediate act, this ritual carries a complex evolutionary legacy. The hind legs, robust and proportionate to the body, allow for swift and precise leaps over short distances. The bright plumage, far from serving as camouflage, responds to a sexual selection that prioritized showiness over discretion. Outside of these encounters and leks, the manakin leads a solitary life, defending tiny territories that are essential to its survival. The clearings where these ceremonies take place never remain empty for long. One ends, another begins. In these ancient lands, the cycles of life continue without pause or rest. Meanwhile, among the undergrowth, a shadow remains motionless, its senses alert, absorbing every movement around it. Away from the hustle and bustle, its patience seems eternal, as if time flowed differently around it. Beneath the dry leaves, that sinuous figure advances with a measured, almost imperceptible rhythm. It's not a swift creature, nor does it grant second chances. This ancient predator carries within its body the history of the landscape it treads. The South American rattlesnake. Its body, a mottled brown tone, blends with the color of the cracked earth and fallen leaves. The rattle, made up of a small cluster of horny rings, emits that recognizable and fatal sound. But this time the snake advances silently with a slowness that anticipates the certainty of death. An ambush hunter, its triangular head houses the most accurate thermal sensors in the Cerrado. It detects heat from a distance, recognizing the tiny shiver of prey even without seeing it. The snake slithers silently, motionless, through the undergrowth, its head slightly elevated. Its thermoreceptor pits, located between its eyes and nostrils, detect the heat of a small mammal that approaches unsuspectingly. In an instant, it launches a swift and accurate strike. Its venom is a cruel mixture of neurotoxins and hemotoxins. First, it paralyzes, then it destroys tissue, disrupts heartbeats, and coagulates the blood into a thick, deadly mass. The prey doesn't die immediately. It fades slowly, plunged into a growing confusion and a terror it can't understand. It's difficult to understand how evolution would endow such a small animal with such a lethal toxin, but perhaps this compensation arises to offset its disadvantage in mobility, making it easier to work effectively in an unforgiving environment. In this biome, where competition is fierce and the heat offers no respite, their strategy is not attrition but immediacy. It only takes one attack, one exact hit. A small galea ventures from its burrow to look for seeds. The ground seems empty, but the snake has been lurking for minutes, motionless, barely tense in its S shape. The galea approaches. A soft click breaks the stillness, and the rattle vibrates instantly. It hits him at the base of his skull, a brief squeal. There's no pursuit. The rodent makes a clumsy jump, stumbles, and begins to spin in clumsy circles. Her breathing becomes short, her legs tremble, her eyes lose focus. The poison begins its work. Blood vessels collapse, muscles stiffen. It's a slow death, one that leaves no defense. Within minutes, only an inert body remains, motionless in the grass. The snake returns, locates it by its falling temperature, and engulfs it headfirst, sliding its jaws like some ancient and perfect mechanism. The night draws on. The Cerrado takes on its midnight silence, where only insects linger. But this apparent calm is fraught with tension. A young, skinny, hungry mountain fox detects the scent of blood. He approaches the clearing. He sniffs. He searches. The snake, motionless under some branches, waits. When the fox is a few meters away, a short, dry rattle pierces the thicket. It's not a warning. It's an affirmation. The fox stops, tense. The sound repeats, sharper. The fox's eyes search the darkness. Vibration is the language of dominance. The young and inexperienced fox takes another step. The rattlesnake shoots out but doesn't bite. It just advances violently, throwing its head forward and strikes with the back of its body. The fox jumps, startled, and in a primitive reflex flees without looking back. The snake, unharmed, resumes its position. In this biome, control is exercised by reputation. The mere echo of its rattle can reshape the movements of a larger predator. The snake slithers one last time among the dry branches. Its body disappears into the darkness as if it had never been there. On that same ground, where dozens of creatures fight, hunt, and die daily, she remains. She doesn't seek abundance. She doesn't seek spectacle. She is pure efficiency. In the fossil record, creatures like her ruled the earth long before large mammals reigned. Their success lies in patience, in not wasting excess energy, in attacking only when there's no room for error. It is an immutable predator whose strategy has not needed to change in centuries to be effective. In the Cerrado, the night does not belong to those who run the fastest, nor to those with the best claws. It belongs to those who know how to wait, to those who understand that a spark of movement can decide a life. And in that ruthless balance, the rattlesnake has no rival. Light slowly returns to this vast Brazilian savanna. Between the remnants of a brutal night and a relentless dawn, the shapes of the landscape take shape once again. What seemed like stillness is, in truth, a constant tension, because here, everything that breathes is either the hunter or the hunted, and yet life persists. Throughout these lands, pit caimans lurk in murky waters, waiting for the slightest mistake. Jaguars plot ambushes where the vegetation becomes denser. Snakes, birds of prey, and medium-sized felines hone their strategies, adapting their bodies and behaviors to an environment that rewards efficiency, not brute strength. But it is not only predators who have managed to triumph. In these plains and scattered scrublands, herbivores have carved out their own success. Capybaras, deer, armadillos, and countless rodents are not passive victims but active survivors. Every day, they decipher the signs of the wind, the fresh mud, the footprints left by others, to stay standing for another day. They've turned their fragility into a resource, and in a biome where death lurks in every direction, survival depends on knowing when to move, when to stop, and in which corner of the forest to wait for the hunters to leave. The Cerrado is not just an open plain, it's a network of dry forests, dense grasslands, remnants of scrubland and waterways that disappear without warning. A web of traps and refuges, invisible shortcuts and unwritten agreements between species that share paths of rough grass, areas of leaf litter and natural corridors between twisted shrubs. The true greatness of this biome lies not in its size or its greenery. It lies in the incessant capacity of every living being that inhabits it to modify its behavior, its body, and its destiny, responding to the cruel rules of a world that grants no respite. Every animal that survives another day under this open sky marks a small victory in the profound history of South American wildlife. When the next evening falls, other bodies will occupy the same paths, and danger will once again emerge from the shadows.